he sets up a meeting at the Fontainebleau between Johnny Roselli, Sam Giancana, and Santo Trafficante come here. And then there's a representative, a guy named O'Connell, who's representing, he's a CIA agent.
How did he convince so many people to do that? And the reason I ask that is because, for example, some of his double agents, if you will, in Florida, they're living among all the people who escaped him because the rule was so brutal, and he became a full blown, he went from revolutionary to the guy that anyone who questions anything, he kills you. Like, how was he able to convince so many people that, like, yeah, we're the good guys?
Usually money.
That's it.
And money. And probably there were a number of different examples. Sometimes it's family reasons. Sometimes there's extortion. You may have family members back in Cuba, or maybe over time they ease up on their criticism of Castro and say, well, he did do this, and maybe he's not as bad a guy or whatever. But money usually was the major thing. And the most clear-cut, in my mind at least, example of that was another gangster who lived in Florida. His name was Santo Trafficante.
Oh, yeah, Tampa Santo.
Exactly. And Santo Trafficante is a key figure in Mafia spies. He portrays himself as somebody who really wanted to get rid of Castro. In fact, Santo Trafficante, who was a second-generation gangster, spoke Spanish. He was, before the Mafia was thrown out of Cuba, Santo Trafficante was friends with Johnny Roselli and Sam Giancana, and he helped run their casino, the San Sushi, outside of Havana. So the feeling was that Trafficante really wanted to get rid of Castro. But if you're a gangster based in Tampa, the biggest money for the Mafia, particularly for somebody like Trafficante, was not gambling and things of that nature, but it was drugs. And getting drugs into the United States was not an easy thing, but usually there were drugs coming through the Caribbean. And you needed Castro. You needed his cooperation for that drug trade. And so later on in my book, you see as things develop, the CIA, and there used to be a thing called the Bureau of Narcotics. It was kind of like an arm of the FBI. It was its own bureau, but investigators there, they all came to the conclusion that Trafficante was a double agent, that he had some involvement with Castro or alliance or some working relationship
with Castro.
Yeah, and so that money was a big factor in all of this.
And that's fascinating too, because when you look at Roselli's motivations in this whole thing, here you have this hardened gangster who's lived his whole life running the rackets for the mob, but he had he genuinely felt, it seemed, some sort of like patriotic duty. Like, yeah, we can whack this guy for America. I love this place.
Right.
And then you have his compadre in the Mafia who's like, there's none of that. It's just like you hear the stereotype of the Mafia. It's money or nothing, right? So if I can make money, I don't give a fuck where this guy is. If he's in Cuba, sounds great.
Yeah. Let's go to where it all starts in a way, which is a hotel called the Fontainebleau in Miami Beach.
Great hotel.
Beautiful hotel. If you've ever seen, I think it's Goldfinger, in the James Bond movie, they have at the very beginning of this, the big sweeping view of this big white-colored alabaster hotel in Miami Beach with this huge pool. In fact, my wife Joyce and I, we had to make sure we checked it out. I've never seen such a big smile on Joyce's face as when she was there in January, and it was so warm, the pool, and it was so great. But it was the Fontainebleau in 1960 where they all get together. And who do I mean by all? Well, it's the CIA. The CIA had recruited a guy named Robert Maier, who worked for the richest man in the country at that time, Howard Hughes. Robert Maier had been an FBI agent, but he became, in this story, the middleman. He became what was known in a cutout, the jargon of the CIA. And he sets up a meeting at the Fontainebleau between Johnny Roselli, Sam Giancana, and Santo Trafficante come here. And then there's a representative, a guy named O'Connell, who's representing, he's a CIA agent. And it's there where they have a discussion about, they agree, we're going to kill Castro. Johnny Roselli says, they offer $150,000. And Johnny says, no, you don't have to pay us. We'll
do it for free.
We'll do it for free. Exactly. And I'm a patriot. In fact, Johnny Roselli is born on the 4th of July.
Oh my God, that's too good.
Yeah, it really is amazing. And so they'll do it for free. And I'm sure that was helped when the CIA agent went back to Washington to the bureaucrats. We don't have to pay him $150,000, boss. He'll do it for free.
Where's the waiter from that dinner? That's what I want to know. Where is this
That must
guy?
have been a big tip, right? Exactly. That weekend is that whole time period at the Fontainebleau is amazing because Sinatra is down there as well, and he has a TV show that he's filming. It's a special, and the special is he invites Elvis Presley, who's just gotten out of the army. And there's a great clip of Sinatra and Elvis Presley singing together, Love Me Tender, Sinatra singing that song. And I forget the Sinatra song that Elvis is singing. But it's, just an amazing moment. And during that whole time period, the three gangsters are there, and Sinatra and Giancana are going back and forth. In fact, it's interesting, the portrayal of Sinatra. I'd like to talk about that in a second. But just to finish out the beginning of this story, which is at the Fontainebleau Hotel, and they decide that the CIA wants to have either some machine guns or some really violent ending to Castro, and that they think that's what the Mafia would be best. Chicago mob, they're thinking St. Valentine's Day massacre. That rat-tat-tat.
So they cared about how it happened too.
Exactly. And Giancana said, no, you want to poison him, because this way there won't be any fingerprints, and we still have people who are friendly to us down in Havana. We think we can get one of them to poison Castro. And so that's really where the whole plot is launched.
What month is this?
This is around March of 19. Okay. Some early 1960.
So we're almost a full year before Kennedy's in there.
Right.
This is very much still Eisenhower.
Yeah, exactly. So Kennedy doesn't take office until early 61. He wins in 60, November of 60. So this is already brewing and such. And yet that poison attempt, the person that they think they can get, and there's a lot of back and forth that goes on, a lot of foot dragging, and people up in Washington saying, why is this taking so long, and whatever. And then the one person that they have that they think is going to be able to poison, will have access to Castro down in Havana, he gets cold feet. Or at least that's the story that Trafficante says. It's Trafficante is the one who thinks he has that connection. And so it sounds really good when you're at the Fontainebleau Hotel. But as months go by, and it literally is months that go by, things don't happen. And so there's other plots that arise and eventually Johnny Roselli winds up going down to Florida. Giancana was down there as well, but Roselli spent a lot of time in Florida, and he was helping train the Cuban exiles. I mean, one of the most extraordinary stories, and they recreate this in the show Mafia Spies on Paramount and Showtime, is Johnny gets down in a boat. This is in the Florida Keys, just south of Miami. And with a whole group of Cuban exiles who've been trained as soldiers, they come down. They have a couple of different boats. They're loaded with armaments that they're going to go in the middle of the night to Cuba and meet at a certain place in Cuba. And when they get there, Castro's security forces are waiting for them. They start firing at them. In fact, the boat that Roselli is on takes on water, and he has to jump into another boat, and they wind up fleeing there. So there's an extraordinary number of attempts to kill Castro. The CIA acknowledged something like about a dozen or so, 8 or 12, I think it is, somewhere in that ballpark, officially that they acknowledge. But other people who have studied this say that many, many more attempts to kill Castro. And so much so that Castro would make jokes about that they're trying to kill me, that this is, people would say, well, what is your favorite hobby? And essentially he would say, my favorite hobby is staying alive from the assassination attempts, just avoiding all these attempts to kill me. It kind of built up Castro's reputation in the eyes of the Cubans as well.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.